So I am the catchment coordinator for the Wairarapa, which is part of Te Upoko Te Ika. We are a very strong rural community, so we have a lot of farmer-led catchment groups in the Wairarapa and a really big catchment communities collective out there as well. But Jane is kind of leading the way on a different way of starting a catchment group in the Wairarapa, so a really interesting way of forming that's a bit more community-led. So over to you, Jane.
Thanks, Maddy. Kia ora koutou, ko reimataka, te maunga ko whanganui a tāra, te moana ko awa kairangi, te awa ko Adelaide, te waka, ko tangata tiriti, te iwi ko Ruamāhanga, ko Riddiford, te whānau ko Jane, aho. I always put in that bit about ko Adelaide, te waka, because I'm 5th generation farming settler family, and it feels very much like that is a part of our mahi, standing in the fault lines of the past and finding a different way forward for the future. And I think it's really through relationship, and actually relationship with, where's Maddy gone?
Right behind you.
I lived a long time, I grew up in, well, first of all in Wellington, but then we moved to a farm that was our family were taking care of in the Wairarapa when I was 11, and then I left the Wairarapa when I was 18 because I didn't really want to buy into the story that was available to me at that time. I had a feeling there was a more connected story, and maybe I lived abroad until probably about 3 years ago, mostly, not all the time. But then I felt like I had to, I always used to come back and see my mum, who's about to be 100, and I knew there was something for me to do in the Wairarapa. And I had been working in London all that time. I set up and ran an environmental education organisation, and we worked in a very multicultural context. But then it was like, what about my own story, my own route? What's the work I have to do there? And so we came back to our family farm with my husband, Rod, who's English, and he was a primary school teacher. And then together with my 2 sisters and my mum, we started paying attention to the little bits of remnant bush that were on the farm. And we just had the beginning of a feeling like, how could we as a family hold the land differently? And my elder sister, Liz, just raised the question that I barely knew what it meant, and I still am learning, but what it might mean for our family to be tangata tiriti. And that was kind of the beginning of things. And then we walked the land with someone in the Wairarapa who's a kaumātua, very connected to the river, called Ra Smith. And our little inkling of a feeling of what we might do, he gave us confidence that it could be a reality. And one of the amazing things about the Wairarapa is we may not have a lot of funding there, but there is incredible collaboration, I've found, and particularly through the environmental education space. And that's how we met Maddy and Mountains to Sea. So as part of our whole kind of feeling for what we wanted to do on and around our farm, it was obvious, we wanted to really work with local young people in the Tamariki and continue the education work, which for Rod and I is what makes things sing. And that was how, I guess it was about a year and a half ago only, we felt, we would do this project Te Reo o Te Wai. And I have to say it connected with work we did in London, we had these projects we called Voices of the Earth and Voices of the Water. So the whole idea of learning what the whenua and the wai had to say to us was kind of very much in our consciousness already. So I think we'll come back and I suppose that quote, just backtrack, Maddy. Yeah, I think also for some, when you start something, people say to you, what's your vision? What's your vision for the future? And I always kind of cringe when I can never answer that. My mind goes blank and it's because for me, the feeling of the future, it's more like a feeling or an inkling. And I often say that vision is what grows in the footsteps of shared commitment, and that if you can already see it, it's not it, but you can create the conditions for the right thing to emerge. So my niece asked me the thing, what did you want in the next 20 years? And I kind of had forgotten that I said that people of all ages will come and be involved, and that they and all of us will grow with the changes that are taking place. And then Maddy, amazingly, Maddy put the slideshow together for me, which was really, she put that quote together and then she made me reflect on what I meant by that. And last night I realized it was, I think part of the fault lines of the past is that when, my forebears came to New Zealand, we felt we already knew, and we didn't recognize that the land was here. And we just tried to, if you read some of the early, the New Zealand company literature, it's like, oh, we're going to smooth and round the hills in the service of God. And, and I feel like we have to go right back to the very beginning. And this whole idea that we already know, we have to really throw that a long way into the middle of the hour and have to go, okay, how can we learn to listen? How can we learn to be shaped by the natural world and turn everything completely on its head? So, I feel right at the very beginning of that journey. And then through Mountains to Sea, whilst the Ruamāhanga River, which is the main awa that runs through the Wairarapa, we're very blessed. It runs past our farm, and we always knew it was special, but I never really knew what was in it. So with Maddy and Kara, her colleague, we've been able to, we'll move on to the next slide. Yeah, we've gone on a journey of exploration, and we have found a way to weave together our kaupapa, and they, as people have said, all the things that Mountains to Sea have such great expertise in, and taking people safely into the water and what's there, and learning about we have caught some little tuna. We have this wetland we're restoring, which is in an oxbow of the river, and we then there's also the river itself. So we've done things in both places, and then also we're in what's called the Wairarapa Moana, so the area that is in the eye of the fish, that area around. So we also, when we work with schools, we work with a class over the whole year. So they do about 8 field trips with us. And on a field trip, we will combine different ways of knowing. So we always start with, where's VJ? Yes, VJ told me yesterday what we do, but we often start with sitting still and being quiet, but he called it this beautiful term. What is it? Say it?
Ministry of Presence.
Ministry of Presence. So, and we often say to the Tamariki, if you're still and silent, not only do your senses open up, oh, we've got to go fast. Not only do your senses open up, but also nature comes to you. And we work with storytelling, both global world stories, and then we're learning some of the local pūrākau, and we are able to bring in other educators and mana whenua who carry some of those stories. And then there's the practical planting and restoration work. So we'll just play you a little video, which is the kind of fruits of the work and the voices of the young people, if we can find it. Are we? Is we're not.
The volume on, and I've got. I think you press F12.
Yeah. So after a field trip, we'll go back into the school, or we'll do work in a tent. But we'll get the kids.
What have I done?
We get the kids to do what we call free fall writing, and this is how we get them to give voice to their experience. And then we've curated their words into a series of audio pieces, which in time we would like to, will populate walkways along the river. Here we go. So this particular one is year 3 and 4. And this is their audios and Rod's music. But we had it for a minute.
Sorry, Kate.
I hope you have kaki here so the waters are open.
Oh.
Kaitiaki of our moana, I want the water to be free and keep on glistening. I hope you are happy about all we are doing. I like all the presents like your stones. I hope you have kaki here so the waters are all fresh.
Kaitiaki of our moana, I want the water to be clear and full of fish. I also want it to be shiny and charming. I hope the water will be safe, clean, healthy and filtered. What I love about the water is it's so majestic and beautiful. I hope the fish and baby fish grow up to be healthy and strong.
It's Kaitiaki of our moana. I want the water to be free and keep on glistening. I hope it's not too dirty and I hope it's not too warm. I want the water to stay charming for all the fish so they can go on amazing journeys through the moana. I also want the slimy, shimmery kakahi and the slithery eels to roam free through the mythical waters.
That's Kara.
I want the water to be shining like the sun. I want to let the water be free in the river and moana. And I want to keep the water healthy. The water should be free sparkling in the sun.
Kaitiaki of our moana. I want the water to be clean, beautiful and sparkling. I also want it to be always under 10 degrees so fish can swim in it. Some of the fish will be specially important.
Kaitiaki of our moana, I wanted the water to be shimmery and beautiful, joyful, healthy, incredible and sparkly.
So I guess just to tie it back to what we were actually meant to talk about, which was catchment groups.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll get there. I
It's
guess
related.
it is. So I guess we've spent the last kind of year and a half ingraining in the community and listening to the community and getting the kids involved. And Jane has these incredible planting days as well, where we get people out on the farm, hands in the soil and learning about the river. And we're actually about to host now the first catchment group meeting, official meeting, but we've kind of started as a way of people actually getting to know the environment first, rather than just coming together in a wool shed and saying, what actions do we want to take?
And I think it sort of touches on a few things, like the first speaker this morning spoke about how do we get our neighbours on board, and I often say we move at the pace of trust, and we've been working with some of their kids in the classes that we work with, and that's been a way of them. And also I should say we're in a floodplain and a spillway, so they have big concerns about the flooding, but it's been a way of getting them not to just dismiss us as a bunch of flaky greens, that going, okay. And I hopefully, fingers crossed, we're right at the beginning of the journey, but some of the kind of key, local farmers have said, yep, we'll come. And I'm hoping that we can have a really mixed group of different voices and ages and worldviews and cultures. So we'll see, that's my hope. But we're really, as Maddy says, this was this kind of spade work that has gone in.
And final little shout out as well. You never know who's in your catchment, and it turns out that RNZ Country Life presenter is in Jane's catchment. So she did a whole series on the catchment group, which was on the community, which is very awesome.
Yeah, I think that's us. Yeah, that's us. But thanks, yeah.